The winter light through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Cliffside House turned everything golden, the Pacific Ocean below, the Douglas firs edging the property, even the dust motes suspended in the air above my kitchen counter. I stood at the island Thomas and I had designed together 40 years ago, my hands working through the familiar motions of preparing duck à l'orange. My 74th birthday dinner. The house smelled like it should. Rosemary, orange zest, the faint mineral scent of the ocean carried on the wind. This was the smell of home, the smell of a life well built. I pressed my thumb against the duck skin, checking for crispness. Cooking had always been architecture in miniature. Layers, structure, timing. Everything had to support everything else, or the whole thing collapsed. Thomas used to laugh at how seriously I took a roast chicken. "Marjorie," he'd say, kissing the top of my head, "it's just dinner." But it was never just dinner. It was proof that I could still create something beautiful, something that would nourish. 8 years since the heart attack took him. 8 years of learning to live in a house designed for two. I glanced at the dining table, already set with our good china, the Wedgwood we'd bought in London after winning the commission for the Maritime Museum. Austrian crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, the one I'd found in a Vienna antique shop. Each piece had a story. Each piece was a memory. Kevin would be here soon. My son. And Tara, his wife. The thought of Tara made something tighten in my chest, a feeling I immediately pushed away. She'd been good for Kevin, hadn't she? After Sarah's death 3 years ago, he'd been a ghost. Grief had hollowed him out. But then came Tara, and suddenly he was smiling again, eating again, living again. So why did I feel this unease? I moved to the wine rack, selecting a Bordeaux for dinner. My fingers brushed against 3 bottles I didn't recognize. Expensive labels. French. Easily $100 each. I frowned. I hadn't bought these. Kevin must have brought them last week when he and Tara stayed over. That had become more frequent lately. What had started as occasional weekend visits had turned into something else. Their clothes in the guest closet. Tara's expensive coat hanging in the hallway. Her perfume lingering in rooms I hadn't been in. "Stop it, Marjorie," I muttered to myself, returning to the duck. "You're being paranoid." But architects don't ignore structural warnings. A crack in the foundation, a shift in the load-bearing wall. These things whisper before they scream. I was setting the candles on the dining table when I heard it. The soft creak of my study door. The room I always kept locked. I set down the candlestick and moved silently down the hallway. My architect's knowledge of this house guiding me across the floorboards I knew wouldn't groan. The study door was ajar, and through the gap I could see her. Tara stood at my antique secretary desk, the one Thomas had given me for our 20th anniversary. The desk I kept locked. Her manicured fingers, French tips, always perfect, rifled through the drawer with quick, practiced efficiency. She wasn't browsing. She was searching. My pulse quickened. She pulled out a manila folder, photographed it with her phone, then returned it precisely as it had been. The movement was too smooth, too rehearsed. I pushed the door open. "Looking for something?" Tara spun around, her hand flying to her chest in an exaggerated startle. But her eyes, ice blue, striking against her golden hair, held no real surprise. Only a flicker of calculation. "Marjorie! God, you scared me!" She laughed, the sound like wind chimes. Pretty but hollow. "I was looking for a pen. This house is so big I always get turned around." I looked at the desk. The lock showed fresh scratches, small but visible, the kind made by someone who knew how to pick a lock but was in a hurry. "The desk was locked," I said quietly. "Was it?" Tara's eyebrows lifted, all innocence. "It was open when I came in. Maybe you forgot to lock it this morning. You know how it is?" She trailed off meaningfully. "How it is? Meaning, you're 74, Marjorie." Memory fades. Before I could respond, Kevin's voice echoed from the foyer. "Mom, we're here. Something smells amazing." Tara brushed past me, her perfume, Chanel expensive, overwhelming in the narrow doorway. "Come on," she said brightly. "Let's not keep him waiting." I stood alone in my study, staring at the scratched lock, my heart beating too fast. Kevin appeared in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered like his father, but with none of Thomas's steadiness. His smile was warm as he hugged me. "Happy birthday, Mom. You look beautiful." "Thank you, sweetheart." I held him perhaps a second longer than necessary, searching his face for something I couldn't name. Some sign of the boy who used to build block towers in this very room while Thomas and I drafted blueprints at the big table. "Everything okay?" Kevin asked, pulling back. I glanced at Tara, who was examining the family photos on the wall with studied interest. "Fine," I lied. "Just checking on dinner." As we moved to the dining room, I noticed Tara pause at my architect's table, where I kept my old blueprints rolled in cubbies. Her fingers traced the label on one. Cliffside House, Original Plans. "This is fascinating," she said, pulling it out slightly. "All these original documents must be worth something." "They're not for sale," I said, more sharply than I'd intended. Tara's smile didn't falter. "Of course not. I just meant historically. You know, for archives." She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to me. "Actually, this is what I do now. Estate Transition Specialist, helping families preserve and organize their legacies." I took the card. Embossed lettering, "Tara Perry, Estate Transition Specialist." "We never discussed you helping with my estate," I said carefully. "Oh, not now," Tara laughed. "But eventually, you know, it helps to plan ahead. Especially with properties this valuable. Kevin and I were just saying how much upkeep this place must be for you alone." Kevin nodded, oblivious. "We worry, Mom. The cliff erosion, the roof maintenance, it's a lot." Something cold slid down my spine. They'd been discussing this, discussing me, discussing my house. "I'm perfectly capable of maintaining my own home," I said. "Of course you are," Tara soothed, touching my arm with that same practiced gentleness. "Kevin just wants to help. We both do." I looked at my son, who smiled at his wife with something that looked like devotion but felt like dependence, and for the first time I wondered, when exactly had I lost him? 6 months earlier, Kevin had called me from a grief support group. "Mom, I met someone. I'd been in my garden, pruning the wild roses that had somehow survived another winter. The phone nearly slipped from my dirt-covered hands. Someone? Her name is Tara. God, Mom, she's incredible. She lost her husband, too. Construction accident 2 years ago. She understands." The hope in his voice had broken my heart. 3 years since Sarah's cancer had taken her. 3 years of watching my son disappear into bottles of scotch and empty rooms. "I'd love to meet her," I'd said, and meant it. That first dinner, Tara had arrived in a cream cashmere sweater and tailored pants that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She'd brought expensive wine and a bouquet of white peonies, my favorites, though I'd never told Kevin that. "Your home is breathtaking," she'd said, walking through the rooms with her head tilted just so. But she hadn't looked at the architecture, at the cantilevered deck Thomas and I had fought the contractors to build. She'd looked at the antiques. Her fingers had traced the silver tea service, the silk upholstery of my chairs, the Tiffany lamp in the corner. At dinner, she'd told us about her late husband, Marcus, how they'd met in Seattle, how his death had left her adrift. "Do you have family nearby?" I'd asked. A shadow had crossed her face. "No, I'm alone now." No family at the funeral Kevin mentioned later. No photos of Marcus in her apartment when they'd started dating. When I gently asked about it, she'd teared up. "It's too painful to look at his face." I'd felt ashamed for asking. 4 months later, they'd married at the courthouse. Small, quick. "We're too old for big weddings," Kevin had said. I'd worn my best dress and tried to ignore the fact that Tara had no one on her side of the aisle. Not one person. "Where's your friend from the support group?" I'd asked. "The one you mentioned?" "Oh, Rachel? We lost touch," Tara had said lightly. It had been the first of many disappearances. The gaslighting started small. My grandmother's diamond earrings went missing first. I'd kept them in the velvet box in my bedroom safe. When I went to wear them for Easter service, the box was empty. Tara, have you seen my earrings? The diamond studs? She'd looked up from her laptop where she was doing mysterious consulting work and frowned with concern. The ones you wore to our wedding? No, my grandmother's. I keep them in the safe. Marjorie! That gentle tone like speaking to a confused child. You wore those to the wedding. Don't you remember? You told me the story about your grandmother. I wore my pearls to the wedding. Are you sure? Tara had pulled out her phone, scrolling. Look, here's a photo. See? Diamond earrings. The photo showed me at the courthouse. I was wearing diamond studs, but they weren't my grandmother's. The setting was all wrong. Those aren't the same? Marjorie, I think maybe you're misremembering. It happens. Stress, aging, a sympathetic head tilt. Why don't I help you organize your jewelry? Make sure everything's cataloged? I'd agreed. What choice did I have? The earrings were never found. Then came the bank withdrawal. $5,000, gone from my checking account. I didn't make this withdrawal, I told the bank manager. He'd shown me the signature. It looked like mine. The date was 3 weeks prior when I'd supposedly been at the bank. But I wasn't here that day. Where had I been? At the dentist? No, that was Tuesday. Thursday I'd been... Where? Our cameras show you at the ATM, the manager said kindly, turning his monitor. The footage was grainy, but it showed a woman my height, my build, my silver hair, making the withdrawal. I'd stared at the screen, my confidence cracking. Had I done this and forgotten? At home, I'd mentioned it to Kevin and Tara over dinner. Mom, Kevin had said gently, you've been a little scattered lately. Maybe we should make an appointment with your doctor, just to check. I'm not scattered. I'm 74, not senile. No one's saying that, Tara had soothed. But memory does change as we age. It's normal. My mother started forgetting things at 70. You said your mother died when you were young, I'd said. A pause. Then Tara had laughed. I meant my stepmother. Sorry, I still think of her as Mom. But she'd never mentioned a stepmother before. I'd started keeping a notebook after that. Hidden in my gardening apron pocket, I wrote down everything. Where I went, what I spent, who I talked to. If I was losing my mind, I'd catch it. Document it. But I never caught anything. Every entry was clear, logical, remembered. The final straw had been Dorothy. My best friend since architecture school, the woman who'd held my hand through Thomas's funeral, stopped returning my calls. After 2 weeks of silence, I'd driven to her house. Marjorie, she'd said at the door, not inviting me in. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. Why wouldn't I? Dorothy had looked uncomfortable. Tara called me. She said you'd been having episodes, getting agitated with visitors. She said you needed peace and quiet, that social stimulation was making things worse. The world had tilted. I never said that. She said you wouldn't remember, that you'd be embarrassed. Dorothy's eyes were kind but firm. I'm not trying to upset you. I just think maybe you need to focus on your health right now. I'd driven home in silence, my hands shaking on the wheel. That night I'd searched the recycling bin, found what I was looking for. 3 credit card applications in my name, signature forged. The handwriting was close but not quite right. I'd bought the burner phone the next day, paid cash, hidden it in my gardening apron, because I wasn't losing my mind. I was being robbed. The birthday dinner started perfectly. The duck was perfect. The wine, Kevin's expensive bottles, was perfect. Tara complimented everything with that bright, hollow enthusiasm. Marjorie, you're such an amazing cook. Kevin's so lucky to have grown up with home-cooked meals. Mom taught me everything, Kevin said, squeezing my hand. But I couldn't eat. My stomach was knotted with the realization that had been building all evening. I excused myself, claiming I needed to get the birthday cards Thomas had written me years ago. The ones I kept in my desk. The ones I'd locked away. I walked to my study, my heart pounding. The door was closed but not locked. I always locked it. Inside, I opened the secretary desk drawer. My hand stilled. The will was wrong. I'd had my will drafted 5 years ago by my attorney, Richard Morse. Everything went to Kevin, yes. but in a trust he couldn't access until 60. Protection against impulse, against predators. Thomas and I had agreed on that structure before he died. But this document, in my drawer, with my desk, said something different. I, Marjorie Elizabeth Perry, being of sound mind, leave my entire estate to my son Kevin Perry and his wife Tara Perry, jointly, to be distributed immediately upon my death. The signature looked like mine, but I'd never signed this. Next to it, photocopies of the property deed, my insurance policies, bank statements, all marked with sticky notes in Tara's handwriting. Transfer to joint account, beneficiary change, power of attorney. My breath came short and sharp. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was theft, premeditated, calculated theft. I grabbed the forged will and walked back to the dining room. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Explain this. I threw the document on the table between the wine glasses and the half-eaten duck. Kevin looked up, confused. Tara's face went carefully blank. What is that? Kevin asked. A will I never signed. A will that conveniently leaves everything to both of you immediately. No trust, no protection, just everything. Tara's eyes widened and tears, actual tears, welled up. Marjorie, I was trying to help you. You asked me to organize your estate documents, remember? Last month you were so worried about making sure everything was in order. I never asked you to do anything. You did. You were having one of your confused days. Tara reached across the table, her voice breaking. I thought I was helping. I'm so sorry if I misunderstood. Stop lying. The words came out louder than I'd intended. I found the credit card applications. I know what you're doing. Kevin stood up. Mom, what are you talking about? She's stealing from me, Kevin. Can't you see it? The missing jewelry, the bank withdrawals, isolating me from my friends. Isolating you? Tara's voice rose, injured. I've been trying to take care of you. Making sure you don't get overwhelmed. Making sure you're safe. By forging my signature? By going through my locked desk? The desk wasn't locked. You keep forgetting to lock things, Marjorie. That's part of the problem. I turned to Kevin, desperate. She's lying. I document everything now. I have proof. But Kevin's face had changed. Not concern, not belief, anger. You're being paranoid, Mom. Tara has done nothing but try to help you, and you're accusing her of… what? Being some kind of criminal? Yes! I moved toward the kitchen, toward the phone mounted on the wall. I'm calling the police. No, you're not. Kevin's voice was cold. He stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Move, Kevin. You're being irrational. You need to calm down. I tried to step around him. Tara was suddenly there, too close, her hand reaching for the will. Let me have that, Marjorie. You're confused. I shoved her hand away. Not hard, just away. But Tara stumbled backward with theatrical perfection, her shoulder hitting the edge of the dining chair. She cried out, crumpling. She attacked me. Tara's voice was shrill, trembling. Kevin, she's violent. She's having an episode. I barely touched you. Kevin grabbed my left arm. His fingers dug in just above my elbow. Give me the phone, Mom. Let go of me. You're not calling anyone, not until you calm down. I pulled away. Kevin's grip tightened. I could see it in his face. Not my son anymore, but a stranger. A man who'd made his choice. Kevin, you're hurting me. He twisted. The snap was audible. A sound like a green branch breaking. Pain exploded up my arm, white hot and blinding. I screamed. The will fluttered from my hand. Kevin stared at my arm, now hanging at an unnatural angle, his face draining of color. I didn't mean… Yes, you did, I gasped through the pain. Tara was at his ear, whispering, her hand on his shoulder, comforting him, guiding him. She's dangerous, Kevin. She could hurt herself. We need to secure her, just until she calms down, until we can get her help. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He looked back and chose her. Come on, Mom. He dragged me down the hallway, my broken arms screaming with every step. I begged. I pleaded. He didn't stop. The utility closet was small, dark, smelling of bleach and old mops. Kevin shoved me inside. I fell to the cold linoleum floor, cradling my shattered arm. "Kevin, please." The door closed. The lock clicked. Through the wood, I heard Tara's voice. "She'll be fine. She just needs to calm down. Come on, let's finish dinner. We can deal with this in the morning." Footsteps retreated. Then silence. Then the clink of silverware. The soft sound of jazz music starting up again. They were eating. Finishing my birthday dinner while I sat in the dark, broken and alone. I leaned my head against the wall and let the tears come. But only for a minute. Because I was Marjorie Perry. I was an architect. I'd built structures that withstood earthquakes, that stood firm against Pacific storms. And I'd be damned if I let them bury me before I was dead. With my good hand, I reached into my cardigan pocket. The burner phone was still there. The darkness in the closet wasn't just absence of light. It was a presence, thick and suffocating, pressing against my chest with the same brutal force that had just snapped the bone in my arm. I sat on the cold linoleum floor, my legs tucked awkwardly beneath me, my left arm cradled against my ribs at an angle that made my stomach turn. The pain came in waves, not constant but rhythmic, pulsing with my heartbeat, each throb sending fresh nausea rolling through me. I focused on breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way I'd learned in yoga classes years ago, back when Thomas was alive and Sunday mornings meant meditation instead of solitude. The air was stale, chemical, bleach, pine sol, the acrid bite of ammonia, smells that should have been ordinary, domestic, but in this confined space felt like violence, like suffocation. Beyond the door I could hear them, the soft clink of silverware against china, the low murmur of conversation, words I couldn't make out but could imagine, the ambient hum of the jazz playlist I'd put on before dinner, Miles Davis, Thomas's favorite. The music mocked me now, each smooth trumpet note a reminder that life was continuing without me, that I'd been erased from my own birthday dinner as easily as wiping down a counter. I closed my eyes and saw it again. Kevin's face as he twisted my arm. Not remorse, not horror at what he was doing. Annoyance, as if I were a difficult problem to be managed, not his mother. How did we get here? The question looped in my mind like a stuck record. I'd raised him alone after Thomas died, worked double shifts at the firm to pay for his college, his failed business ventures, his divorce from Sarah. I'd been there for every crisis, every midnight phone call, every time he needed someone to tell him it would be okay. And he'd repaid me by locking me in a closet. No, that wasn't right. He'd repaid me by choosing a woman he'd known for less than a year over the mother who'd spent 50 years loving him. The grief was sharp, cutting deeper than the physical pain. Because broken bones heal. But this kind of betrayal left cracks in the foundation that could never be fully repaired. I opened my eyes and stared into the darkness. My architect's mind cataloged the space automatically. Approximately 4 feet by 4 feet. Concrete walls behind the drywall. Single door with external lock mechanism. No window. A prison designed for mops and cleaning supplies, now holding a 74-year-old woman with a broken arm. Somewhere above me, a pipe dripped. Plip, 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 steady as a metronome, counting down the seconds. How long would they leave me here? The thought brought a fresh wave of fear. What if they didn't come back? What if they finished their dinner, went to bed and simply forgot about me? I could die here. Shock, dehydration. The pain itself could trigger a heart attack at my age. Would they care? I thought about Tara's face as she'd whispered to Kevin, the cold calculation in those ice blue eyes, the way she'd performed the fall, the injury, the tears. She was good, professional, even, and Kevin had believed her without question. Or had he? The thought stopped me cold. Had Kevin actually believed Tara? Or had he simply chosen to believe her because it was easier? Because believing me would mean admitting he'd married a predator. Because believing me would mean facing the fact that he'd been weak, manipulated, complicit in the destruction of his own mother. Victims can be the most dangerous people, I realized, because they justify every cruelty as necessary for their survival. My right hand moved instinctively to my cardigan pocket. My fingers brushed against the familiar shape of the phone. The burner I'd bought 3 weeks ago after finding those credit card applications in the recycling. Thank God I'd kept it on me. I pulled it out carefully, the movement sending fresh jolts of pain through my arm. The screen glowed in the darkness, a small rectangle of hope. 14% battery, 1 bar of signal. It was enough. But who to call? My thumb hovered over the emergency call button. 911 was the logical choice. The safe choice. Police, ambulance, rescue. But then what? The scenario played out in my mind with horrible clarity. Officers arrive. Kevin and Tara meet them at the door. Concerned, apologetic. Officer, we're so sorry. My mother has been having episodes, early-stage dementia. She became violent during dinner, hit my wife, actually, and we had to secure her for everyone's safety. We were just about to call for help. And Tara would have medical records. I knew she would. Forged doctor's notes about my declining mental state. Testimony from people she'd carefully poisoned against me. Dorothy, probably others I didn't even know about. It would be my word against theirs. A confused old woman versus a devoted son and his concerned wife. I'd lose. Worse, they might have me committed, declared incompetent, and then they'd have everything. The house, the assets, the power of attorney they'd probably already forged. No, I couldn't call 911 alone. I needed someone who would believe me, someone with authority, someone who knew me well enough to know I wasn't confused or senile. My mind raced through possibilities. Richard Morse, my attorney? He'd retired to Arizona. My doctor? I hadn't seen Dr. Patterson in 6 months, and our relationship was professional, distant. My old colleagues from the firm? Most had moved away, and those who remained were acquaintances, not allies. Then a name surfaced from memory, carried on a wave of grief and guilt. Harrison Brooks. Harrison. Thomas's best friend since law school. The man who'd stood beside me at the funeral, who'd held me when I'd broken down at the wake, who'd called every week for the first year, and then gradually, as I'd pulled away in my grief less and less. The last time we'd spoken was 2 years ago. I told him I needed space, that every time I saw him, I saw Thomas, that it hurt too much. He'd understood. Told me he'd always be there if I needed him. Would he still mean it? I scrolled through my contacts. I'd transferred his number from my old phone just in case, and stared at his name. Harrison Brooks, District Attorney, Multnomah County. Wait, District Attorney. The realization hit me like cold water. Harrison wasn't just a friend. He was one of the most powerful prosecutors in Oregon. He had resources, authority, connections. If anyone could cut through Tara's lies, it would be Harrison. My finger hovered over the call button. Doubt crept in. What if he didn't answer? What if he thought I was crazy? What if 2 years of silence had killed whatever friendship we'd once had? Outside the closet, I heard Tara laugh. A bright tinkling sound. The sound of someone celebrating. I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. My heart hammered against my ribs. The pain in my arm was intensifying, radiating up to my shoulder, down to my fingertips. I felt lightheaded. Please, I thought. Please answer. 4 rings. 5. Brooks. The voice was gravel and whiskey, roughened by age but still commanding. Harrison. My voice came out as a whisper, broken. It's Marjorie Perry. A pause, long enough that I thought the connection might have dropped. Then, Marjorie, I haven't heard from you in... The tone shifted abruptly, concern sharpening his words. What's wrong? You sound... I'm locked in a utility closet. The words tumbled out, each one harder than the last. In my own house. My arm is broken. My son did it. He and his wife, Harrison, they're stealing from me. Forging documents. They're in the next room eating dinner while I'm... Are you safe right now? Are you in immediate danger? I don't know. I don't. A sob caught in my throat. I need help. I called you because if I call 911 alone, she'll convince them I'm senile. She has fake medical records, Harrison. She's been gaslighting me for months. She's a professional. Okay, Marjorie, listen to me. Harrison's voice steadied, became the DA voice I remembered from the few courtroom cases I'd observed years ago. Where are you exactly? Cliffside House, the utility closet off the main hallway. I'm 45 minutes from you, but I'm leaving right now. I'm calling Chief Matthews. He'll get units there faster. I'm also calling my lead investigator. We're going to come in with everything, understand? Witnesses, authority, cameras if we need them. They won't be able to talk their way out. Relief flooded through me so intensely I almost dropped the phone. Thank you. God, Harrison, thank you. Stay on the line with me. Don't hang up. How bad is the arm? I looked down at it, though I could barely see in the darkness. Bad. Broken. I heard it snap. Christ. A pause, then the sound of keys jingling, a door closing. How long have you been in there? I don't know. 20 minutes, half an hour? And they just left you? They're finishing dinner. My voice broke on the words. Birthday duck. I spent 6 hours making it. Harrison's breath hissed through his teeth. When he spoke again, his voice was cold with fury. Marjorie, I need to tell you something, and you need to stay calm when I tell you. My hand tightened on the phone. What? I know Tara Perry, or rather I know who she really is. The world tilted. What are you talking about? Her real name is Tara Voss. She's wanted in California for elder fraud and financial exploitation. We've been tracking her for 6 months. She disappeared from Sacramento before we could arrest her. We knew she was in Oregon but lost the trail. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. You knew about her? Not that she'd married your son. Jesus, Marjorie, if I'd known you were involved, why didn't you call me sooner? I thought I was going crazy. The tears came now, hot and fast. She made me doubt everything. My memory, my judgment. I started writing things down, documenting, but I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. You're not paranoid. She's a predator. She's done this to at least 3 other families that we know of. She targets vulnerable people, usually recent widowers with substantial assets, and she bleeds them dry. One of her victims in San Diego died under suspicious circumstances 6 months after they married. The implications crashed over me. Kevin. Oh God, Kevin doesn't know? Kevin might know more than you think. Harrison's voice was gentle but firm. I'm sorry, Marjorie, but the bank records we've subpoenaed show transfers that required his signature, his cooperation. No, but even as I said it, I knew it was true. The way he'd looked at me when he broke my arm, the coldness, that wasn't manipulation, that was choice. I need you to be strong for 15 more minutes, Harrison said. Can you do that? I wiped my eyes with my good hand. 15 minutes. I'd survived 8 years without Thomas. I'd survived Kevin's addiction to grief and alcohol. I could survive 15 more minutes. Yes. Good. Now tell me about the house, the layout. I need to know what we're walking into. I talked Harrison through the floor plan, the long driveway, the reinforced front door, the open layout of the main living area, the location of the closet. My architect's mind clicked into professional mode, a refuge from the pain and fear. The dining room is visible from the front entrance, I said. If you come in, they'll see you immediately. Good. I want them to see us. Are there other exits? Back deck, but it's through the kitchen. They'd have to go past the closet to get there. Better and better. I heard him talking to someone else, giving instructions. Then back to me. Marjorie, how's your breathing? Any chest pain? No, just my arm, and I'm cold. Shock, that's normal. Try to stay warm as you can. We're 12 minutes out. The pain was evolving, sharpening. My fingers were starting to tingle, going numb. Not good. I shifted position carefully, trying to keep the arm elevated against my chest. Harrison, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why did you keep looking for her? Tara, I mean, after she disappeared from Sacramento. A pause. Because one of her victims was my cousin's husband. He lost everything before we even knew what was happening. The family is still recovering financially. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Use it. Outside the closet, the music changed. Something slower, classical. Tara's choice. She'd complained that jazz was too chaotic for dinner music. I heard their voices more clearly now. They'd moved closer, maybe to the living room. Tara. We should probably check on her soon. Kevin. Give her time to calm down. Tara. What if she hurt herself? Kevin. She's fine. She's just being difficult. Being difficult. As if I were a temperamental child, not a woman with a broken arm locked in a closet. Harrison, they're talking about checking on me. Let them. Don't engage. When they open that door, I want you to stay calm. Stay quiet. Don't give them any information. We're 8 minutes away. Okay. My voice sounded small, even to me. Hey. Harrison's tone softened. Thomas would be so proud of you right now. You know that, right? Fighting back. Documenting everything. Calling for help instead of just accepting their version of reality. Tears burned behind my eyes. Thomas would be ashamed that it got this far, that I let Kevin become this. Thomas would understand that you can't control what other people choose, even your own children. He paused. 5 minutes, Marjorie. Hang on. The wait stretched like taffy, each second elongating into eternity. I counted my breaths, focused on the drip of the pipe, anything to keep from screaming. Then, in the distance, sirens. Tara's voice, sharp. What the hell is that? The music cut off abruptly. Footsteps, running. The sound of curtains being pulled back. Kevin, there are police cars coming up the drive. 3 of them. What? Tara's voice went up an octave. Did you call them? No, I thought you— Shit. Tara was moving fast now, her heels clicking on the hardwood. The documents. Where are the documents? What documents? The will, the power of attorney. Kevin, where did you put them? I don't know. They're somewhere. The doorbell rang. Not a polite ring, but a long, insistent press that didn't stop. Then pounding. Heavy fists on reinforced oak. Police! Open the door! But it wasn't just police. It was Harrison's voice, amplified by authority and rage. Kevin Perry, Tara Perry, this is District Attorney Harrison Brooks. Open this door immediately, or we will breach it. Silence in the house. I could picture them frozen, Tara's mind racing through options, Kevin paralyzed with fear. We have a warrant for Tara Voss, also known as Tara Perry, for fraud and elder abuse. We also have reason to believe someone in this house requires immediate medical assistance. You have 30 seconds to open this door. Tara's voice, shrill now, all pretense of sweetness gone. I don't know what you're talking about. My name is Tara Perry, and we haven't— The sound of wood splintering. They'd breached the door. Heavy boots on my floors, multiple sets. Harrison's voice, commanding. Kevin Perry, Tara Perry, put your hands where we can see them. Now. This is insane, Tara was shouting. We haven't done anything. This is harassment. Where is Marjorie Perry? She's upstairs, resting. She's not well? Liar. Harrison's voice cut through. Officers, search the house. Find her. I gathered my strength and screamed, Here! I'm in here! Footsteps thundered down the hallway. The closet door handle jiggled. It's locked, an officer called out. Break it down. A pause, then a massive impact. The door frame cracked. Another hit, and the door swung open violently. Light flooded my prison, so bright I had to squeeze my eyes shut. When I opened them, Harrison Brooks was kneeling in front of me. He'd aged. Gray streaked his dark hair now, and lines I didn't remember bracketed his mouth. But his eyes, brown and warm and fierce, were exactly as I remembered. Jesus Christ, Marjorie. His voice cracked. He looked at my arm, at the unnatural angle, at the bruising already spreading across my skin. His jaw tightened until a muscle jumped in his cheek. He turned his head toward the hallway. Get the paramedics in here now, and get those 2 in handcuffs. Both of them. I heard Kevin's voice, desperate. Wait, I can explain. You broke your mother's arm and locked her in a closet. Harrison's voice was ice. There's nothing to explain. Paramedics pushed into the small space, gentle and efficient. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt beside me. Ma'am, I'm Sarah. I'm going to help you, okay? Can you tell me where it hurts? My arm, left arm. She examined it carefully, her face professional, but concerned. Okay, we're going to get you out of here into the hospital. Try not to move it. They lifted me onto a stretcher with excruciating care, but even gentle movement sent white-hot pain screaming through my shoulder. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. As they wheeled me down the hallway I'd walked 1,000 times, I passed the living room. Kevin stood against the wall, hands cuffed behind his back, his face the color of ash. He looked at me, and our eyes met. In that moment I saw it. Recognition, horror, the terrible dawning realization of what he'd done. Mom! His voice broke. Mom, I didn't mean... I looked away. Tara stood nearby, also in handcuffs, her perfect blonde hair disheveled, her ice-blue eyes blazing with fury. When she saw me, she lunged forward. The officer holding her jerked her back. You crazy old bitch, she spat. You'll regret this. I'll sue you for everything. You're senile. No one will believe you. I looked at her, really looked at her. Without the mask of sweetness, she was just another predator. Dangerous, yes, but no longer terrifying. I already have, I said quietly. Now it's your turn. Harrison walked beside the stretcher as they wheeled me to the ambulance. The cold night air hit my face, sharp and clarifying. I'm riding with you, Harrison said. It wasn't a question. Thank you. My voice was barely a whisper. He took my good hand and squeezed it gently. Thank you for calling me, for trusting me. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I looked back at Cliffside House. My house. The house Thomas and I had built with our own hands, our own vision. Kevin and Tara were being led out in handcuffs, placed in separate police cars. I should have felt triumph, vindication. Instead, I felt only a profound, exhausting sadness, because I'd won the battle, but I'd lost my son. The hospital was a blur of sterile lights, sharp medicinal smells, and the steady beep of monitors. Dr. Reeves, the orthopedic surgeon, was in his 50s with steady hands and a calm demeanor that reminded me of Thomas. Mrs. Perry, you have a spiral fracture of the humerus. It's a serious break, but we can fix it. I'm going to insert a titanium plate and screws to stabilize the bone. You'll need physical therapy afterward, but you should regain most of your mobility. How long? I asked. Surgery is about 2 hours. Recovery, several months. Months. I closed my eyes. Okay, do it. We'll take good care of you, he promised. Harrison stayed in the waiting room through the entire surgery. When I woke in recovery, groggy and nauseated from the anesthesia, he was sitting in the chair by my bed, reading case files by the dim light. You're still here, I mumbled. He looked up, setting aside the folder. Where else would I be? Don't you have a job? I am working. This is my case now. He pulled the chair closer. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a truck. I looked down at my arm, now in a heavy cast and sling. A very specific truck, driven by my son. Harrison's expression darkened. We need to talk about that. But first, you need to rest. No. I pushed myself up carefully with my good arm. Tell me everything. Now. I need to know. He studied my face, then nodded. Okay, but you're not going to like all of it. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. Inside were photos, documents, bank statements. This is Tara Voss, he said, showing me a photo. It was her, but with dark brown hair and glasses. Or Sarah Montgomery. Or Michelle Brennan. She's used at least 5 different identities that we know of. He spread out more photos. Same woman, different hair colors, different styles, but always those cold blue eyes. Her MO is consistent. She targets vulnerable families, usually recent widowers with substantial assets and weak family structures. She infiltrates through grief support groups or charity events, creates a fake identity as a widow herself. The sob story is always similar. Dead husband, no family, all alone. Kevin, I said, my throat tight. Kevin fit her profile perfectly. Middle-aged, grieving, financially comfortable due to his inheritance from his father, and with an elderly parent who owned valuable property. Harrison pulled out more documents. She marries fast. Then the gaslighting starts. Isolation from friends and family. Fake medical records showing the victim has dementia or mental health issues. Forged legal documents, wills, powers of attorney, property deeds. How many times has she done this? We know of 4 confirmed cases: San Diego, Sacramento, Portland, and now here. There may be more we haven't connected yet. He showed me a newspaper clipping, an obituary. Robert Brennan, age 68, died 6 months after marrying Michelle Brennan. That's Tara. Official cause of death was a heart attack, but the autopsy showed elevated levels of digoxin, a heart medication he wasn't prescribed. The case is still under investigation. My blood went cold. She killed him? We suspect so, but we couldn't prove it. She disappeared by the time the toxicology came back. Harrison's face was grim. In Sacramento, she almost succeeded. The victim's son got suspicious and hired a private investigator. When Tara realized she was being watched, she fled. Took about $100,000 in jewelry and cash with her. And Portland? Similar pattern, but the victim died before we could build a case. Natural causes, supposedly, but the family had suspicions. He paused. Marjorie, I need to ask you something difficult. Has Tara had access to your medications? The question hung in the air like poison. I thought about my pill organizer, how sometimes pills seem to be missing or extra, how I'd assumed I'd miscounted. Yes, I whispered. She offered to help organize them, said I was getting confused about dosages. Harrison's jaw tightened. We'll need to have your blood tested, and we'll search the house for anything she might have planted. He pulled out another document, and this one made my heart sink. Bank statements highlighted in yellow. This is the part that's going to hurt, Harrison said gently. Kevin wasn't just a passive victim in this. I didn't want to look, but I forced myself. Transfers from my account to a joint account under Kevin and Tara's names. $50,000, then $30,000, then $75,000. These required his signature, Harrison said. His authorization. Maybe she forged it. We found emails, Marjorie. Harrison pulled out printed pages, his expression pained. Between Kevin and Tara, discussing the transfers, discussing the will, discussing... He hesitated. I grabbed the papers from him. The email was from Kevin's account to Tara's, dated 3 weeks ago. Can't we just wait? She's old. It won't be that much longer, and then we don't have to deal with the legal complications. Natural causes, no questions. Tara's response. We've been waiting for a year. I'm tired of playing nice with the old bat. We either accelerate the timeline or I'm out. Your choice. Kevin's reply. Okay, we'll do it your way. Just tell me what you need me to do. The paper slipped from my fingers. He knew, I said numbly. He knew what she was, and he didn't care. Harrison gathered up the papers. Tara is claiming he was the mastermind, that she was coerced, threatened, abused. It's her standard defense. Turn on the accomplice, play the victim. Do you believe her? No. But Kevin's lawyer will argue manipulation. They'll say he was psychologically compromised after Sarah's death, that Tara exploited his grief. He might get a reduced sentence. I thought about Kevin's face when he twisted my arm. The coldness, the calculation. What do you think? I asked. Honestly. Harrison met my eyes. I think your son is weak. I think Tara found that weakness and used it. But I also think that at some point Kevin made a choice. Maybe he was manipulated into it. Maybe he told himself he was just going along to keep her happy. But when it came down to it, when he had to choose between you and her, between right and wrong, he paused. He chose wrong. I closed my eyes against the tears. What happens now? We prosecute. Both of them. The DA's office has been building a case against Tara for months. This is the break we needed. And Kevin will be charged as an accessory to fraud, plus assault causing bodily harm. He's my son. I know. Harrison's voice was gentle. And you're the victim. You get to decide how much mercy you want to show. If you want to push for a plea deal for Kevin. If you want to testify on his behalf. No. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Harrison looked at me, surprised. No deals, I said. No mercy. If I protect him now, I'm not saving him. I'm killing him. He needs to face consequences. Real ones. Maybe in prison, without her whispering in his ear, he'll finally find out who he really is. Harrison nodded slowly. Okay, then we go to trial. Full prosecution for both of them. How long? Depends. Could be 6 months. Could be a year. I'll wait. I looked down at my casted arm. I've got time. Harrison stood, gathering his files. Get some rest. I'll be back tomorrow with more questions, and you'll need to give a formal statement. Harrison? He paused at the door. Why did you really keep looking for her, after all this time? He was quiet for a moment. Because Thomas was my best friend, and he made me promise that if anything ever happened to him, I'd look out for you. When you pushed me away after he died, I respected that. But I never stopped looking out for you, even from a distance. My throat tightened. I'm sorry I shut you out. Don't be. Grief does what it does. He smiled, sad but warm. I'm just glad you called me when you needed me. After he left, I lay in the hospital bed, listening to the monitor's beep, watching the night sky through the window. I thought about Kevin, sitting in a jail cell right now, probably crying, probably full of regret. But regret wasn't enough. Consequences, Thomas used to say, are how we learn what we're made of. It was time for Kevin to find out, and for me to rebuild everything that had been broken, starting with myself. 6 weeks passed in a haze of physical therapy, depositions, and sleepless nights in a downtown hotel suite. I couldn't bear to return to Cliffside House yet. The ghost of that birthday dinner, the snap of my bone, Kevin's cold eyes, the darkness of the closet, haunted every room. Harrison visited daily, bringing case files and coffee, helping me prepare for testimony. My arm healed slowly, the titanium plate a permanent reminder. The physical therapist, a patient woman named Monica, pushed me through exercises that brought tears to my eyes. Pain means you're rebuilding, she'd say. Scar tissue is stronger than the original. I thought about that a lot, about scar tissue, about what becomes stronger after it breaks. Kevin called from jail. I never answered. I listened to the voicemails in the dark, his voice growing more desperate with each message. Mom, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I was confused. Tara manipulated me. You have to believe me. She told me you were going to cut me out of the will anyway. She said you never forgave me for Dad's death, that you blamed me for not being there when he had the heart attack. I believed her, Mom. I'm sorry. I love you. Please, just talk to me, please. The final message 3 days before the trial. I get it now, what I did, what I became. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know. You were a good mother. This isn't your fault. It's mine. I saved every voicemail. Evidence of consciousness, Harrison called it. Evidence that Kevin knew exactly what he'd done. Tara's strategy became clear through pre-trial motions. She was throwing Kevin under the bus with theatrical flair. Her lawyer argued that she was the real victim, manipulated and abused by a controlling man who'd orchestrated the entire fraud. According to her narrative, Kevin had forged the documents, made the transfers, and gaslit his own mother, all while threatening Tara into silence. It's almost impressive, Harrison said dryly, reviewing her statement. The complete inversion of reality. Will it work? Not after what we have. He tapped the folder in front of him. Tara's previous victims, the pattern, the evidence trail. She's done this too many times. The jury will see through it. The preliminary hearing arrived on a gray March morning. I dressed carefully, a navy suit, pearls, my silver hair styled professionally. I wanted to look strong, capable, not like someone who could be dismissed as senile. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with wood-paneled walls and fluorescent lights that turned everything slightly yellow. I sat in the front row with Harrison, my casted arm prominent in its black sling. When they brought Tara in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished, golden-haired consultant. This woman wore an orange jumpsuit, her roots showing dark against bleached hair, no makeup to soften the hard lines around her mouth. Our eyes met across the courtroom. She smiled, cold and sharp as broken glass. Kevin entered separately, his shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. He'd lost weight. His jail jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. He looked at me once, just once, and the pain in his eyes was so raw I almost looked away. Almost. But I held his gaze until he dropped his. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Diana Chen, called me to the stand first. I placed my good hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Perry, can you describe the events of November 14th of this year? I took a breath and began. I told them everything. The forged will, the confrontation, Tara's performance, Kevin's choice. I described the sound of my bone breaking, the darkness of the closet, the sounds of them finishing dinner while I sat in pain. My voice didn't shake. Not once. Tara's lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, cross-examined me with practiced skepticism. Mrs. Perry, isn't it true you've had memory issues? No, but you're 74 years old. Surely you've experienced some age-related forgetfulness. I'm an architect, Mr. Dawson. I remember every detail of every structure I've ever designed. My memory is fine. Your daughter-in-law has stated that you frequently misplaced items, forgot conversations. My daughter-in-law is a professional con artist who has done this to at least 4 other families. She gaslit me intentionally to make me doubt my own mind. Objection, Dawson stood. Speculation and prejudicial. Sustained, the judge said. Mrs. Perry, please stick to facts. I nodded. The fact is, I documented everything. I knew something was wrong, so I kept records. Diana stood. Mrs. Perry, what kind of records? This was the moment. Twist number 5. Harrison had coached me carefully on how to present it. I kept a notebook, written documentation of every interaction, every missing item, every suspicious incident. I paused. And I recorded conversations. The courtroom stirred. Even the judge looked surprised. You recorded conversations? Diana asked. Yes. Oregon is a one-party consent state. I was legally permitted to record conversations I was part of. 2 months ago, after I found forged credit card applications, I began recording interactions with Tara and Kevin. Diana approached with a tablet. Your Honor, we'd like to enter Exhibit F into evidence. Audio recordings made by Mrs. Perry. The judge nodded. Proceed. The first recording played. Tara's voice, sweet and concerned. Marjorie, honey, you're just confused. You did sign those documents. Remember? We were in your study, and you said you wanted to make sure Kevin was taken care of. My voice uncertain. I don't remember that. Tara. That's okay. That's why I'm here, to help you remember. The second recording was worse. Tara and Kevin, unaware I was in the next room with my phone on. Tara. We need to accelerate the timeline. Get her declared incompetent faster. Kevin. How? Tara. More incidents. More witnesses to her episodes. Maybe a fall. Something that requires hospitalization. Once she's in the system, it's easier. Kevin, after a pause. What if she gets hurt? Tara. She's old, Kevin. These things happen. And once we have power of attorney, we can make decisions for her medical care. Do you understand what I'm saying? Kevin. Yeah, I understand. The courtroom was silent. I looked at Kevin. His face had gone gray, his hands trembling where they rested on the defense table. The final recording was from the night of my birthday, captured when I'd set my phone to record before dinner, tucked in my cardigan pocket. The sounds of the confrontation. My voice. "This is a forged will." Tara. "She's violent." Kevin, "She attacked me." Kevin. "Mom, calm down." Me. "Kevin, you're hurting me." The snap of bone, audible and sickening. My scream. Then Kevin's voice, cold. "Come on, into the closet." My begging. "Please, Kevin, don't." The slam of the door, the lock clicking. Then, most damning of all, their voices fading as they walked away. Tara. "She'll be fine. Come on, let's finish dinner." Kevin. "What if she's really hurt?" Tara. "Then we call 911 in the morning. Say we found her. Old people fall all the time." Kevin. Okay. The sound of silverware clinking. Jazz music starting. The recording ended. I looked at the jury. Several were crying. Others looked sick. Tara's face had gone white with fury. She leaned over to whisper viciously to her lawyer, but Dawson looked defeated. Kevin had his head in his hands. Diana approached me gently. "Mrs. Perry, why did you start recording?" "Because I needed proof." Tara had spent months making everyone think I was losing my mind. I knew if I didn't have evidence, no one would believe me. I looked at the jury. She was very good at her job. "Thank you, Mrs. Perry. No further questions." I stepped down from the stand on shaking legs. Harrison met me at the gate, his hand steadying my elbow as I returned to my seat. The verdict came 3 weeks later, after Tara's previous victims testified, after Harrison's investigators presented evidence of her pattern of fraud, after Kevin's lawyer made a desperate plea about manipulation and psychological abuse. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Tara Voss, 15 years for elder fraud, financial exploitation, conspiracy, and assault. Her face twisted with rage as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. She turned to scream at me one last time. "You destroyed my life, you vindictive old—" The judge's gavel cut her off. "Remove her from my courtroom." Kevin Perry, 6 years for accessory to fraud, assault causing bodily harm, and conspiracy. His sentencing hearing was 2 days later. His lawyer made an impassioned plea for leniency. First offense, history of depression, manipulation by Tara. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Perry, as the victim, you have the right to make an impact statement. Would you like to address the court?" I stood. My arm was out of the sling now, though it still ached. I walked to the podium and faced my son. Kevin looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "I loved you more than my own life," I began, my voice steady. "When your father died, you were all I had left. I worked myself to exhaustion to give you opportunities. I sacrificed my own needs, my own happiness, because I thought that's what mothers do." I paused, gathering strength. "But love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. And I enabled you for too long. I protected you from consequences, from failure, from the hard truths about yourself. I thought I was being a good mother. Instead, I helped create a man who could break his own mother's arm and lock her in a closet." Kevin sobbed openly. "I'm sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry." "You need this," I continued, my voice firm. "You need to face real consequences. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. Because maybe in prison, without Tara's voice in your ear, without me rushing to save you, you'll finally discover who you really are. Who you could have been if I'd let you fall and learn to stand up on your own." I looked at the judge. "I ask for justice, Your Honor. Not vengeance, but justice. He made choices. Let him live with them." The judge nodded gravely. "Mr. Perry, you are sentenced to 6 years in state prison with eligibility for parole after 4 years pending good behavior and completion of therapy programs." The gavel fell. Kevin was led away. He looked back at me one last time, his face crumpling. I didn't look away, but I didn't wave goodbye either. Harrison walked me out of the courthouse into spring sunshine. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "But I will be." 3 months later, I returned to Cliffside House. Harrison drove me, his presence a quiet comfort. We pulled up the long driveway, and I stared at the structure Thomas and I had built. Storm-proof, earthquake-resistant, still standing. "You don't have to go in," Harrison said gently. "Yes, I do." Inside, the house smelled of fresh paint. I'd hired a renovation crew to transform the spaces that held too much pain. The dining room where Kevin had broken my arm was now a sunroom, floor-to-ceiling windows, comfortable chairs, plants everywhere. Light and life instead of darkness and betrayal. The guest wing where Kevin and Tara had lived became my art studio. I'd always wanted to paint. Now I had time. The utility closet was gone entirely. We'd removed the wall, expanded the kitchen. No more prison in my own home. I walked through each room, touching walls, remembering. Not just the betrayal, but the good years, too. Kevin's childhood. Thomas's laughter. The foundation of love that had existed before it cracked. "It's beautiful," Harrison said, looking at the renovations. "It's mine again," I replied. I reconnected with Dorothy over coffee in my new sunroom. She cried, apologized, hugged me tight. "I should have known something was wrong," she said. Tara was a professional. She fooled everyone. I squeezed her hand. "But I'm taking my life back now." I joined the board of the county women's shelter, used my architecture skills to design a new safe house, something secure and welcoming, used my experience to help other women, especially older women trapped in situations of abuse and exploitation. Harrison became a constant presence. Friday dinners, quiet conversations, companionable silence. Not romance. We were too old and too set in our ways for complications. But deep friendship. Partnership. "Thomas would be proud of you," he said one evening. Would he? I looked out at the Pacific, waves crashing against the cliffs. I failed Kevin. "You didn't fail him. You freed him to face himself." 18 months after the trial, a letter arrived from Kevin. Prison stationery, careful handwriting. "Dear Mom, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to take responsibility without expecting anything in return." I knew what Tara was doing. Not at first. She was good at hiding it. But by the end, I knew. And I chose to go along with it because it was easier than admitting I'd made another terrible mistake. Easier than facing this fact that I'd let another woman destroy my life. After Sarah died, I was so broken. And Tara made me feel whole. Or I thought she did. Really, she just filled the void with poison. I'm in therapy 3 times a week now, working in the prison library, reading again. Real books, not just escapes. I've stopped drinking, stopped making excuses. I'm starting to understand who I am without someone else defining me. It's terrifying and lonely, but it's real. I don't know if I'll ever be someone you can be proud of again, but I'm trying to be someone I don't hate. I love you, Mom, even if you never speak to me again. Kevin, I read the letter 3 times, sitting in my sunroom with Harrison's latest casserole warming in the oven. I cried. Not the sharp tears of betrayal, but something softer. Grief for what was lost, hope for what might be rebuilt. I didn't write back. Not yet. But I didn't throw the letter away either. I put it in my desk drawer, unlocked, next to the photo of Thomas and young Kevin building sandcastles on the beach. Some foundations take time to rebuild. 2 years after the trial, I sat in my sunroom watching a winter storm roll across the Pacific. I was 76 now, my hair completely silver, my left arm stronger than it had been before it broke. Harrison arrived for Friday dinner, bringing wine and stories from the DA's office. "Kevin's parole hearing is in 6 months, he mentioned casually. Early release for good behavior and therapy completion." I nodded, watching the waves. "I know. Will you attend?" "I don't know yet." I turned to him. "Ask me in 5 months." We sat in comfortable silence, drinking wine, watching the storm test my house. The structure held firm, just as I'd designed it to. "You know what I've learned?" I said finally. "What's that?" "I spent 40 years building structures that could withstand anything, earthquakes, storms, erosion, but I never understood that people need the same kind of foundation. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're the load-bearing structures that keep you standing. Harrison raised his glass. To foundations, then. To foundations, I echoed. I looked at my reflection in the darkening window. Older, yes. Scarred, certainly. But my eyes were clear. No more doubt. No more gaslighting. No more sacrificing my dignity for love. I was Marjorie Perry. I was an architect. I'd built a house that withstood the storm. I'd rebuilt myself the same way, one load-bearing wall at a time. And whether Kevin rebuilt himself, whether he poured a foundation strong enough to stand on, that was his work to do, not mine, not anymore. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, I was safe. And for the first time in years, that was enough.